I'm going to be talking about something that comes up a lot. I've been asked about this quite a few times in kind of emails or comments or conversations. What to do about triggering friends. This is a really big issue, and a lot of people kind of struggle with it because you have all these friends and you might not realize they're triggering before you enter into recovery. And then when you're kind of in recovery and you're trying to get healthy, try to change your behaviors and your habits and just your way at looking at things like body image and food and health and life, suddenly you start noticing things about maybe some of your friends or even family where you realize, wow, this person, or at least this person's kind of views or certain behaviors are actually kind of negatively impacting me. Maybe they negatively impact your life as a whole, or maybe they just have a negative impact on your recovery in certain moments or at certain times. So all that being said, what do you do about it? First of all, there is nothing wrong with speaking up. And I know that this is kind of easier said than done. Confrontation isn't always the easiest thing, especially, with people who maybe have quite strong opinions or are a bit more strong-willed or whatever, people you're closer to or sometimes people you're less close to. But there's nothing wrong with speaking up. If you have a relationship with a person that's open and honest and they know that you're in recovery, or maybe it's time to let them know you're in recovery, there's nothing wrong with just sitting down with them and saying, look, I'm in recovery for an eating disorder right now, and it's really difficult for me for you to be talking about your diet all the time, or I find it really difficult or really triggering when we're out shopping and you're complaining about your body because it triggers me to feel bad about my body, which is something I'm working on and trying to overcome. Or just explain it as simply as you can, and you don't have to go into like super detail if you don't want to. That will probably depend on your relationship with the person. With someone, you might be able to sit down and have a 2-hour conversation about it and explain exactly how it makes you feel. With other people, maybe it's just a coworker. I have had that situation with people that I've worked with, or just kind of acquaintances, where I've just had to say, look, to be honest, I can't really talk about this right now because I'm recovering from an eating disorder and it's just a really hard conversation. It's not a healthy conversation for me to have. I've said that. I've even said that to guys before. There's nothing wrong with saying it. So that would be my first kind of piece of advice, would be to speak up. If you speak up and things don't change, or if you don't have the relationship with the person where you're comfortable saying something, or it just doesn't feel right, or you just can't bring yourself to do it, which is okay. The next kind of piece of advice that I would give would be to then take a step back. Taking a step back does not necessarily mean you're cutting someone out of your life forever. Because I know often when I kind of will suggest that to someone, or even just when anyone suggests that, people think, oh no, like I can't cut that person out of my life. They've been in my life forever. I've known them for years. It would be so horrible. You don't have to cut a person out. Yes, if they are a very, if they're having a really long-term unhealthy impact on your life and they're just not a good person to have in your life, cutting them out, that sounds harsh, like breaking up with them basically, might be a really good decision. And maybe in recovery is when you'll develop kind of the confidence and strength to do that. However, not every person or every situation is that severe. Sometimes it's just a certain aspect of their life, or it's just, when you're really vulnerable, it's incredibly triggering, but when you're not, it's okay, you can handle it. So taking a step back can be a really good thing. And sometimes this means spending less time with the person, and other times it means spending different types of time with the person, if that makes sense. So yeah, you could go from seeing the person every day to maybe hanging out with them once a week or so. Sometimes it's just about how much time you spend. But other times it's the type of time that can really help. So rather than doing a lot of one-on-one things, maybe opt for group settings. Rather than, if maybe they're on a diet or they have very restrictive or unhealthy eating behaviors, rather than always going out for lunch or dinner with them, try to choose an activity. Again, the same thing with shopping. If they're always complaining about their body and that's really triggering for you, don't go shopping with them. Recommend doing something else. Find some other activity that's going to work. Something where there's maybe a lot of distraction. Going to movies can be great because there's not a whole lot of conversation. So then you're not cutting the person out. You're not being kind of a bad friend. You're just kind of changing the dynamics of the friendship until you're comfortable going back to how they were, or maybe it will be a permanent change. You might find the person then asks you like, hey, we used to hang out more, what's going on? Or, hey, like, you know, is there a reason you never really want to go out for dinner with me? We always seem to do different things now. That could be a really good opener if step one, talking to them about it, if you were uncomfortable doing that or it didn't go so well, that could be a really good opener for that conversation or for a follow-up to that conversation. Just say, look, I talked to you about it, I explained, nothing changed, I didn't want to cut you out of my life, and so I just had to make these changes to our relationship in order to kind of look out for myself. Or you could say, I was going to talk to you about it, but I was too scared or I didn't get the chance, and so this was kind of the best way for me to keep you in my life because I enjoy having you in my life without completely cutting you off, but also without compromising my recovery. So that can actually be a really good kind of stepping point or starting point for the conversation as well. Finally, if it's just nothing changes and every time you hang out with the person, it's the same thing, it's super triggering, it's really unhealthy, then it might be time to just completely step back. Now, you don't always have to say something. I know maybe it sounds terrible and it depends on the type of relationship, so you have to be the judge of each situation. With people that maybe you don't hang out with that often anyways, sometimes it's just a matter of hanging out with them less and less and less until you just kind of grow out of each other's lives. Other times it might be a conversation and you just have to say, look, like, it's not healthy for me to have you in my life. It's a huge threat to my recovery and I just need some time apart. If the person has mistreated you for a long time, maybe they've been bullying you, manipulating you, and you didn't really notice it, but now that you're kind of building up that self-esteem and that self-confidence, you're starting to realize, hey, I deserve to be treated better than this. You can say something, or you can just make the decision to distance yourself from that person. It's kind of up to you. I always kind of opted for the distancing myself. I found that people who were kind of manipulative and bullies, they're so self-absorbed anyways, typically they don't really notice if someone kind of removes themselves from their lives because they just then go on to the next. Another good technique, and I can't get into all the details because this video will go on forever, so let me know if you want me to do a follow-up, is standing up to them. Standing up to someone who's bullying you or has been very manipulative in your life is usually a surefire way of getting them to leave you alone because bullies don't like people who step up or speak out, and if you do that, they're just going to go find another victim who won't. So that can be another option. And finally, one last tip that sometimes helps, especially for people who talk negatively about their body or their body a lot, or do a lot of diet talk or a lot of dieting. Very often when you throw back principles like intuitive eating, when you throw out things about how you just love your body or throw out some of these more positive messages, someone who doesn't want to or isn't ready to kind of start embracing those positive messages doesn't want to hear them. And I did have this situation with a person where, we'd go shopping and it was always about, oh, well, when I lose the weight, then it will fit me, so maybe I should buy it now. And so I would just say, but what if you don't lose the weight? Like, you're fine now, so why would you buy something that doesn't fit you? Like, what if you don't? And obviously this person didn't like that because they weren't ready. They didn't want to start embracing kind of the more, a different approach or kind of a more positive body image approach. And so the conversation stopped because all they got was dead ends with me. Usually people start talking like that or speak like that because they want it to take off into a conversation where either you're just going on some big body hating rant, or you're like, oh my gosh, but you're so beautiful, you're so great. Like, either way, that's what they're looking for. And so if you just kind of throw back a fact at them or use, I'm really big into using reason. So you just throw out some reason like, yeah, but what if you don't lose the weight? And just, it stops there. You're not giving them what they're going for. And so then they're going to stop bringing that up in conversations, which also means you can still usually keep hanging out with them and the trigger factor and the uncomfortable conversation factor is gone. Or maybe they'll just stop wanting to hang out with you, which also can happen. Anyways, I hope you guys have found this video helpful, and let me know if you have any questions or any kind of follow-up comments, and if there's anything you want me to cover in a future video, and I will talk to you guys really soon. Bye!